And joining us now on This Is the Day is a great friend to Catholic TV. You just saw him on the Mass. It's Monsignor Fay of Pope St. John the 23rd National Seminary, and he's got a seminarian with him, Deacon Zach. Deacon, thank you so much for being with us. Your first trip to Catholic TV.
Thank you, yes.
Monsignor can't say that. I don't know how many trips you've had here.
Many.
There have been many. We're going to start with you, Monsignor. For those who may not know about the seminary, which is just such a great place, could you give me a brief overview?
It's a seminary for older candidates to the priesthood. A lot of men, maybe at a young age, feel a draw to a vocation of the priesthood, but go on in life and make all kinds of decisions. And the tug never goes away. If that's what God wanted them to do in life, He's going to get them. And many of them come to us after 30. We don't take men under 30. And we've got guys in the house in their 60s. And they go into a 4-year program of formation. They love it. They enjoy being with each other. They're great supports to each other. And they manage to end up doing what the Lord always wanted them to do.
And we have one of them here. Deacon Zach, tell me a little bit. Now, first of all, I'm surprised we allowed a New Yorker in, but we'll make an exception. Tell me a little bit about your journey, your vocation journey.
Well, to make a long story short, I grew up as a Episcopalian and Presbyterian, and in the early 2000s, I was involved at the Fifth Avenue Presbyterian Church in New York City. And at the time, they had a ministry for the homeless men and women that were the most difficult to reach in New York City that slept on their church steps. And I started ministering to them in Lent 2005. It was a very simple ministry. You go out there, bring them coffee, befriend them, get to know them. And then afterwards, I would go to St. Patrick's Cathedral or St. Monica's Church up by my apartment to pray for them. And over time, as I'm praying for them, I have an inspiration. Well, what would a priest do for them? So I was not yet Catholic. I went out to California to study to be a minister at the San Francisco Theological Seminary. And there was a class. It was sort of like a go to church and, come back and write about your experience. Well, I would go to St. Anselm's Catholic Church right across the road from the Presbyterian Seminary. And I remember thinking, that's where I need to discern. So I withdrew from that program, moved into San Francisco, got an apartment in the city, and started going to St. Monica's Church. And Father Green received me in the church on June 2012, ironically Father's Day. 2 years later, I studied for the Archdiocese of San Francisco for 5 years. But I always had this desire to come back to New York, where it all began. So that's a bit of my journey.
Well, and we're glad your journey has led you here, too, with us today. Monsignor, what is the difference with forming? You said 30 to 60. What's the difference between forming of younger men who might be at their diocese seminary and older gentlemen?
They're two completely different types of people. Yeah, guys in their 20s, which would be the younger group, are living in a very different way than guys who've had some experience with life. The way we educate them, the way in which we teach, the way in which we interact in the classroom and in formation is a very, very different kind of model. These men come to us already formed humanly in so many different ways, spiritually. They've got some academic world behind them, and they have a real zeal for the pastoral ministry. The younger men are just coming to these areas, and it's a very different way of formation.
Yeah, I've always been surprised when one of the guys will come over. I say, what did you do? Oh, I was a doctor. Yeah. I was a lawyer. It's incredible, the professional backgrounds that some of these guys have. Deacon, what has your experience at the seminary been like for you?
Oh, it's a wonderful place. I think of these men in the second half of their lives. So they've had life experience. A lot of them were married and their wives are, dead, or they've had children. And they just bring that to the ministry. And it's really profound because they have that depth. They've all gone through their own kind of paschal mystery experience.
Now, I have to ask you, Monsignor, about the podcast. And I know that you're the producer, Deacon, but tell me about this podcast, where people can listen to it.
It's been a lot of fun. We do podcasts every month. It comes out on the 23rd, interestingly, of the month, Pope John the 23rd. And Zach is going to be on in December, in fact, and talk a little bit more about the experience he just mentioned to you. It is a way in which people can know what we do, who we are, and we always make a pitch for guys who are in their middle ages who may be still thinking about the possibility of a vocation.
And the name of the podcast?
Never Too Late.
Never too late.
Never too late, Pope John.
If people are interested, maybe there's some older gentlemen out there who are interested in the seminary, where would they find out more?
They can come to us at Pope St. John Seminary, psjs.edu, and you can find whatever you want. And don't hesitate to say to a man, I think you'd make a good priest. Sometimes it's just the key that unlocks the door.
Well, Monsignor, always a pleasure. Deacon, so nice to meet you.
Thank you.